Coming up on Veterans Matters, it's part 2 of our discussion with the student veterans of Eastern Illinois University that took part in the Bataan Memorial Death March. That's coming up next on Veterans Matters.
There's a 15-mile honorary walk plus a 26.2-mile competitive run hike. And so people can enter in either category. I think what happened this year that affected the results, and it's probably happened in the past, a lot of people that had entered to do the full distance, once they got to the turnaround point for the honorary walk at 13 miles, decided to break it off at that point and just return. They weren't going to go ahead and complete the whole course, but they wanted to do the honorary walk with the veterans and the other participants. So that reduced the number of people that were entered in the event to the number of people that finished the event, which altered the results, which actually moved us up dramatically after the first unofficial results.
I was going to say we jumped like at least 200, didn't we?
Places up after they took out all the people that had done the short course, so we were glad to see that. I think that I had heard unofficially before we left that fully 1/3 of the people that had entered the event did not finish or were medically disqualified.
Yeah, I'd like to know that because, I mean, one thing we haven't mentioned on the course, I get probably the last mile and a half of the course, you come out of that sand pit thing and you get back on hard pavement, and then for some reason all the mileage signs disappear, so then once again you don't really know what's going on. But then there's this stone wall and you kind of come up to that and you got to go right, and you're thinking, okay, well, you can hear people clapping, and but anyhow there was people sitting along the stone wall, and I remember people being ambulanced out, and I'm thinking, well, it has to be close to the end, and that but I mean there was a lot of folks that didn't make it. I mean, and they were pretty close, but that was a real psychological thing too, because you never see the finish. So,
well, I think that leads right into the fact that even before I had thought about participating in this event, I had read in magazines and stuff that people considered it one of the best organized events for its size in the world. True. And that organization was reflected from the time we got there to check in to the time we finished. It was a well-run operation. I'm going to say that's probably because the military planned it. I might be biased. But the medical facilities were excellent along the whole way, and they were busy the whole route. But the part that Gus is referring to is that sinister part at the end where you can almost see and sense the finish line, and then they send you in every direction but the finish line for it seems like forever. And that seemed to be breaking a lot of people's will that still had the physical ability maybe to continue on. And at that point, the medical personnel, rather than just taking them and evacuating them right out, were actually jogging down the course themselves and meeting them and giving them encouragement and assisting them while they were there if they had any problems, but saying, you know what, this close, if you quit now, you're not going to forgive yourself and you can do it. And so they were more about making sure that people finished the course in a healthy way. They were treating triage on people's blistered feet and for dehydration and heat problems. There was just no waiting for medical attention, anything that you had, any discomfort at all. Yeah. They were very encouraging in helping people get that dealt with and keep them on the trail, get them finished.
And you do, well, I was going to say it is kind of a camaraderie that you encourage people. And what I meant to say about the ambulance, they were putting somebody in, and then I saw, you know, you would see people on the side, and I guess the heat just got to them because they're in better shape than I was. And I'd be like, come on, you know, it's only, finish has to be close. And the person there went their lunch, and I was just like, I'm going to keep walking, you know, and maybe call the ambulance over because it was, I mean, it's just I know other people were working harder, you know, but I mean, I felt pretty good towards the end. I mean, I think I could have done it a lot better. That's my only regret.
People collapsing after the finish line was what amused me because, not amused me, but I thought was interesting. People that had actually pushed themselves beyond all their limits still managed to cross the line before they gave in. And that's where the medical tent was just overflowing with people who looked like they were in a lot of pain but had some big smiles on their face.
Yeah, I saw several people that just, I mean, they literally crossed the finish line, maybe walked about a distance of a tent, and then they collapsed right there.
Well, and me and AK met a couple of Dallas police officers that will remain anonymous, and one of them was in the Marine Corps at the same time I was and looked in real good shape, in my opinion, for his age. And I had his phone number, and he asked if she finished, and I gave the time, and he kind of was silent for a minute because I think he had some struggles. Well, his friend got helivac'd out, you know, that was with him. So, I mean, these were pretty healthy individuals, and they just, I don't think they were really respecting the course, I guess would be the best way to put it.
I was surprised at the amount of activity between the medevac copters and the ground ambulances and the people in four-wheelers coming onto the course to haul people off.
I'm kind of tired of that.
I actually had gone with the intention of walking the entire thing, and then when these two decided that they were going to run it, I was just like, well, hey, I might as well try as well. And I've run, I've completed half marathons before, but last year, months ago, and I'd not really had any training since then. And I was actually impressed that I was able to, I pretty much stayed at a steady pace, steady run until 13, and then 13 to about 20. It was still a steady pace, but it might be, like walk for 10 seconds and then run for, a minute or two and back and forth like that. And one of the things that kept me motivated personally was I would see people off in the distance and I go, okay, person in the pink tank top, I'm going to pass you. And I would just kind of just keep going for that goal. One of the other things too is if I saw certain like marathon runners or, age, gender, a lot of people, cadets, if I heard them behind me and they're all having a good time and acting like it's nothing. I mean, because like you said, there were some kids that were about 10 years old. I think I even saw younger ones, like down to almost, I would say 6. And so, yeah, if I heard them coming up behind me, I was like, oh no. But towards the end, it actually became more difficult because even the 10-second walks, my legs would actually just lock up. And there were a couple of times along the course that I was telling him earlier that I actually had sort of like a muscle failure with this foot in particular. It just went numb and then curled under like mid-step, and I had to quit running at that point because I said I'm not going to be one of those people in YouTube videos that just, so I just had to kind of, the trick was just listening to your body enough, because I think some of the people that were passing out or things like that, they just kept pushing forward instead of listening to their body going, oh, because there were a couple times I started to see stars. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to walk a little bit, drink something, take some of these little energy jelly beans I got, and then carry on from there.
Our goals and things evolved over time as our team changed. But it was our purpose as a team from EIU was to represent our connection from EIU alum and faculty and members of our veterans organization who had family members in the march. We wanted to go there to honor their memory. It is a memorial march, and that was our primary focus. Although it is a competitive march, there are a lot of people in it for non-competitive reasons. And so our emphasis was in gaining historical perspective and knowledge on the Bataan Memorial itself, getting interactions with other veterans and relationships with other veterans groups, networking and representing for EIU and recruiting for EIU, and anything we could do to positively represent EIU and the Black Knights organization. But having said that, when the starting gun sounds, there's competitive spirit in everybody. And like AK was saying, all my plans went out the window. And I just knew that if I saw a group of intimidating, healthy young men at a distance in front of me, that my goal was just to pass them. And if I saw somebody in front of me that I didn't think had any business being in front of me, my goal was to pass them. So it really became just a never-ending series of individual competitions between me and other people on the course, and some I won and some I lost badly. So it was both uplifting and humbling a little bit at the same time. Then the main thing that impressed me was after people crossed the finish line, all sense of competition went out the window. People were not talking about how fast they did it or what their experiences were. They were just busy congratulating everybody on finishing. Especially the groups that were representing some special cause. I know for Mike and I that the Wounded Warriors and that extreme team made an impression on us that I don't think we'll ever forget. He might want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, right before I talk about Team Extreme, is one thing, you have the team goal that we had initially thought of, and then as time goes on and you're doing this march and you got 26.2 miles and 6+ hours to think about it, you're like, man, what am I doing this for? And then you think about it and you're like, you know what, I'm paying tribute to the Bataan survivors. I'm paying tribute to veterans. You know, I'm paying tribute to the people out here that have done served and all of that other category of things. And your mission changes a little bit. It becomes less about you and it becomes more about everything else. So as you're going through it, it's no longer an event. It's a tribute. It's a memorial. You know, you're like, I'm doing this for each and every other person out here and those before me. So your mission evolves and your team goal evolves, individual goals evolve. And in that same respect, he mentioned Team Extreme. There was this group of individuals. This organization was started in 2009 and by a Marine, and he just wanted to pay tribute to wounded warriors and other veterans. And this Team Extreme, they did this march in a gas mask, and this particular gas mask reduces 20 to 30% of your oxygen. So you can imagine these guys wearing full military gear, you know, a 35-plus pound camel pack on their backs, and they still do it, you know. And one of the gentlemen on the team, Sergeant Noah Galloway, he did it with one prosthetic leg and one prosthetic arm, and he was still wearing a gas mask. And you look at that, and you're like, I mean, that's what it's all about right there. And it's like, I want to do it for that guy, and I want to do it for many like him. You know, it's just paying tribute and honor to those guys. I mean, it's a mental test, and you just want to honor all of that.
It's incredibly humbling when you see that. You know, just our goals and us to just complete it without any gear, rucksack, anything like that, and then you see all these people that come through as a team, crossing the line together. You know, like you said, the double amputee, all that. It's very, very humbling.
I think any excuses that we would have made for failure is invalid at that point. I don't think there was a person on the team that didn't say, we're not crossing the finish line. And I'd like to compliment the team because we did initially have hopes to take a larger group, and through our fundraising efforts and through the support of the university, this is the team we were able to take. So we had to constantly be adapting our own involvement within the team over the course of time, and it worked out to, I think, a fairly efficient utilization of manpower. In other words, the three of us that pushed ourselves over the course were trying to experience somewhat the physical deprivations and stuff of the actual survivors as much as we could and not become statistics ourselves. Gus stepped up and took responsibility for documenting with the camera as much of the trip and talking to other people and getting it on film so that we could broadcast this and make it known to other people and get more involvement in it. And then our veterans coordinator did an excellent job of spending as much time as possible on the course, talking to as many veterans and veterans groups and ROTC programs and just anyone on the course that he could talk to recruit for EIU and to promote the Black Knights and to facilitate the veterans getting to veterans benefits coordinated. He just did a great job of basically kind of an umbrella of encompassing everything we were there for. And so we functioned really well as a team with everybody stepping up and filling their own role.
And I was going to say just briefly that it was great going to New Mexico, and you know, for a long time I didn't really realize why this event is happening in New Mexico, and it kind of goes back to a lot of, you know, why you keep going. I believe there was an artillery battalion. It was overran when the Philippines fell, and I think the largest percentage of POWs that the Japanese held throughout World War II were from New Mexico, and it was mainly because of the Bataan.
The regiment that was originally stationed in New Mexico was redesignated the 2nd Coastal Artillery Unit and sent for the defense of Filipinos. So they had heavy contingent of New Mexico residents already. And New Mexico, I think, historically has one of the highest per capita rates of active military service from its civilian population anyway. So we were going right into a community that is a veterans community, and I think that they reflect that in this event that they started not that long ago that has grown into an international event that generates a lot of revenue that go to good veterans causes.
And I think it was, you know, what I was going to lead in saying that you know, that was their America, and that's what they went back to, and it was kind of a real good feeling that, you know, you think about why you join the military, you know, and why you're doing this, and, you know, we all come from different backgrounds and that, but, you know, there was loved ones in our lives, just like there was in theirs, and it's kind of that, you know, connection with that, and you got to see, you know, that this is in memory of them and that, so I'm not really saying this correctly. What's that? I'm doing fine. Just that, you know, that you would see that this was their home and what they came from, and I would have never got to see that before, and then to be able to be a part of something bigger than that. And, you know, we were real fortunate, you know, with the fundraising. There was a lot of people back here that donated and gave and you know, who have family members that are veterans or serving currently. So, I mean, there was always a lot of positive feeling through the EIU faculty and staff, but really a lot of the EIU students had nothing but good things to say about doing something like this. So it was a good connection with the university.
We were all entered as individual competitors in the civilian light category, which meant that any packs less than 35 pounds down to no weight. I personally carried about 20 pounds of weight. I think Mike was our fastest finisher with 5 hours and 59 minutes.
And 30 seconds.
And 30 seconds. I spent most of the time trying to catch him, but futilely, and it came in at about 6 hours and 24 minutes.
I was gonna say, did you have anything? I don't remember if you ended up going with your.
Yeah, I had my camo pack. Okay. And I carried this hat the whole time while I wore another one.
AK was on my heels just about the whole time. We were at the rest stop at the halfway point at the same time. So I knew, and I looked back quite a times that she was right behind me, and you finished like within 2 minutes of my time or something.
I think mine was like a little under 6.5 hours. So.
And then I was at, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was at 9 hours, 59 minutes, and 36 seconds, I believe.
You beat the 10-hour mark.
Woo! So.
And we all did the 26.2 mile full marathon course. So.
Yes.
For me, I mentioned earlier, is mile 18 was one of those bigger ones. I had talked to a couple of guys who had done marathons before, and they were talking about scientifically and physiologically what your body does at that mileage, and I felt it. You know, I was like, oh, whatever, but I felt it. You could tell the difference, and I've been running for a lot of that course, and at that time I was like, man, I don't think I can do this. But then again, like the experiences we had with the people we met on the course, and you seeing wounded warriors just blow by you, it's like, I'm not quitting. So,
For me, I would probably say about mile, which sounds so odd because it's so close to the end, but probably about mile 22, 23 is where it became really, really difficult for me, and about mile 25 is when I, you know, I said I was like, oh, I'm gonna pass that person right there. Well, the last several miles, it just kind of becomes this game of cat and mouse. Like you'll pass them, but then you'll take a break and they'll pass you, and it just kind of kept going back and forth. And so for that last mile, one of the individuals that I was like, oh, I'm gonna end up passing you, we both ended up coming to like a dead stop at the same time and ended up pretty much just walking and running that last mile and mile 0.2 together. So,
you know, I never really felt like quitting, but there was a couple things I remember going up the pavement when it's going up, and I guess that's around mile 10. I remember I was walking with this trainer from Las Cruces, and she was like, I asked her, I go, is there a reason I'm breathing hard? And she's like, well, you're going up in altitude. And I'm like, oh, no, it couldn't be that steep, you know, but I could tell that it was like, hey, this is kind of weird. And probably the other time was, I guess, like, I'm going to just say 16 or 17 when you're on that pavement, and it seemed like it was flat for a while, you know, and it was a dirt, rocky road. And I thought, oh, there's White Sands, the base, you know, so I'm going to go over that way. And then it took that turn, and then I had to go up another hill that was pretty steep. That was probably the closest I came to where I was like, man, is this ever going to end? You know, real dejected. And my legs did something weird. I mean, they just started feeling kind of jelly, yeah, and just kind of lightheaded a little bit. And then I just thought, wait a minute, you know, and got some water. And like I say, every station there's water and oranges and all that kind of stuff. So, and then after that, I was just kind of determined to go because it would seem like, well, I got to get through the sand. And then that was at whatever mile mark, you know, last 6 miles, I want to say. And it was like, when I got through that, I'm like, well, now I just got to get done. And then all the psychological stuff starts happening. It seems that you're almost like sleep deprived or something because it's like, well, where are the mile markers? You know, there's no more mile markers of how far we go on. And then there's this stupid wall that won't leave me that's always over on my left. And I'm like, I know there's a finish line here somewhere. And so then it all just starts messing with you. But I just kept trudging, and it was pretty much a done deal then.
It gets to,
As I said, regardless of your physical condition going into the event, there's always a possibility that injury or something will stop you from finishing. And I know I saw a lot of people having problems with blisters and feet problems. For me, there was the parts of the course, the terrain was fairly rugged. It either had large rocks or uneven ground or loose and drifting sand, and foot placement becomes very difficult in those situations. And then as your muscles get more fatigued, they have, so turning an ankle or making a wrong step was a serious consideration, I would say, over the last third of the course, and that was what concerned me, that I wouldn't be able to finish, is if I injured myself some way like that. And then there were a few times that these like herds of giant 7-foot tall New Zealand guys with 4-foot broad shoulders wearing 80-pound packs go storming by, and you feel like you might get trampled like in a herd of buffaloes or something. But, so I don't think you can ever go into that course and not expect the possibility that you might not finish it. It's part of it's just the luck of the course.
My satisfaction with it was, you know, finishing it was very important. The other thing I thought, you know, hopefully we keep doing this, you know, as an event. And, you know, I can always, when people go next year, it's like, well, hey, I finished the thing. You know, just to have the ability to say that, because it is, I think, something that would help somebody we have our shared experience with this, so if other Black Knights in the future want to do it, you know, there's going to be a wealth of knowledge on what to expect and how to do it and go through with it. So it was just a real good feeling to have that under my belt.
For me, it was just the completion. Like I said, I've done a few long distance runs before, but my next goal was to do a full marathon. And while like I said, I hadn't anticipated this being the event that I did, so yeah.
Most of my satisfaction came from the fact that one of our goals was to go and represent Eastern well and to represent the Black Knights well. And as a team, I was really pleased with everyone's performance. And I think we drew some attention to ourselves. We had people coming up and asking us about our shirts and where we were from. And so that was very satisfying. For me personally, as a veteran, shaking the hand of some of the men that actually survived that march was profound, and I found it satisfying that these weren't bitter, sad, angry men. These were guys that led happy, full lives after they returned, and just that experiencing people that had that inner fortitude and that strength and that human spirit, that was just refreshing for me, as you know, just to experience that. That was a great deal of satisfaction, and then that it was our organization that helped organize this and send a team, and that we represented so well. That I'm very proud of that. That's very satisfying.
For me personally, I think the biggest challenge for me was I've never done a long distance event. I've never done a marathon. I didn't have a lot of distance training for the event. So I went into it and I was like, man, I don't know what to expect, and I don't even know if I'll be able to do it. So being able to go there and push myself to my limits and break through those limits every other mile, you know, at the tail end of the event, and to see the people I'm next to and being a part of that group and that camaraderie. It was a huge accomplishment. When I crossed the finish line, I was like, wow, I did it, you know, and I felt happy that I was able to honor others in the survivors by completing the event. I didn't quit on them. And like Greg said, you know, being able to shake the hands of the survivors at the very end, I almost teared up at the end, because it was very hard not to. I was trying to be strong for them, and I wanted to honor them in the best way possible. So the greatest level of satisfaction was to be able to complete it and do it honorably, you know, and be able to hold myself together and shake those men's hands and thank them. I thanked every single one of them for what they've done. So,
because at the very end of the course, the survivors were sitting there, and you shook their hands, and like you said, their spirits and stuff were still very positive and stuff. I mean, because they could have easily have you know, sat there and looked at us, you know, some of us like all out of breath after running it without any, you know, ruck or anything on. And instead, I know, like the gentleman at the very end, I think he said the same thing to everyone when he shook your hand, you know, like, oh, did you just complete that? And they're like, yeah, I did. And he said, well, we've got something in common then, you know, and very positive, and it was very, very humbling and uplifting.